My name is Michael. Libraries have always been important to me. One of the first things my parents did when they moved into a new place was to take us to the public library. When I visited Barbados, I found a public library there that Andrew Carnegie built. I donated some books to them. I was doing it as a tourist, but I had some books with me that I wanted to donate. At that time, overseas postage was not as expensive, so I was able to send them some additional donations, which they greatly appreciated. But I'd like to tell you what libraries can do, if I may. My grandfather was raised on a farm. I think he got a sixth, maybe an eighth grade education, because that's what was available. But he used the library a lot, and he learned how to read well. He managed to get into college. His wife's family paid for him to go to college. He got his doctorate, and he raised a family of, I think, 7 children. The guy was brilliant, learned Greek and Latin. The college he went to was a seminary, but at the time it was what was available to him. One of the people that he raised, of course, was my father, who loved libraries. He had a massive library of books at all times. When my father used to come home with a new book, he'd say, "Son, can you have this read in the next 24 hours because I want to read it?" And I would have it read in 24 hours. My father, during World War II, he finished high school in 3 years, and he finished a 4-year bachelor degree in college in 2 years. What was he using? The library. Now, why did he do that? Well, it was the height of World War II, and the college went to a trimester system, and he knew he was going to get drafted, and he wanted all the education he could get. And as it turned out, he wasn't drafted, but many of his buddies were. My mother extensively used the library. She also went to college, got a degree teaching. She learned mathematics and music. I was a kindergartner, and my parents kept a library in the house, which I could go to. My mother had me reading when I was 5 years old. As I said, the first thing they did when we moved to a new place was get us to the public library. It opened up new horizons. It opened up new ways to think. It opened up possibilities. Libraries in the modern sense are fairly recent, but they had libraries in Egypt, Rome, and even universities in Africa. I met a Nigerian when I was in college at the University of Michigan, and I turned him on to used book sales and so forth. He packed like 200 pounds of books at a time to take back with him to Nigeria. Libraries also do library sales. Go to booksalefinder.com, booksalefinder.com. I've been addicted to that site since I first discovered it. This lists library sales all over the country. Now, I go to the ones in my area. They cost me $1 or $2 a piece, and what I do is feed interest. I can tell you a better story. A friend of mine in Bombay, India, now Mumbai, runs a self-help medical library, and he wanted books for this, and I found whatever I could find for him at library sales. At that time, I could get the surface rate for books, which was $1 a pound, so I'd ship them to him. Surface rate. It would take 2 or 3 months, but he was patient. And he'd get like 30 pounds of books at a time. You know, the post office actually has a library rate. If you are sending a book to or from a qualifying 501c3 nonprofit library, you can ask for the library rate. It's, maybe 25 cents cheaper, but this was Benjamin Franklin's idea. That's how far back that goes. I guess what I would say to you is that libraries have very much been a part of my life. I thoroughly enjoy them. I know both libraries in my town. Public libraries in my area are diversifying. They're doing other things. They're doing, for example, maker spaces where they have 3D printers and other things like that. They kind of need to. But libraries are utterly magnificent. To me, if you think about it from a quantum mechanics point of view, the universe is an infinite library. Maybe it's not totally infinite, but it's certainly much larger than I can imagine. But if you see the universe as a collection of information, which in quantum theory it is, the universe itself is one massive library. I love libraries. Always have. I feel totally comfortable in them, and they are magnificent. I spent as much time as I could in libraries. They had libraries in all of the schools I was in, and I made use of them. I made a special point of checking books out almost every week, both from the town library and the junior high and high school library, and I learned as much as I could. My father told me, in effect, that what you get in school is not adequate when you go to college. He said, "You've got to be studying on your own." I'll give you a precise example of what I mean. I knew a guy in high school. He worked as, I don't know, a butcher's assistant in some grocery store. So my buddy knew that if he was going to get into college, it was going to be on his own steam. So he worked at the grocery store weekends and took every penny he made and he put it into college graduate level math textbooks. The guy was brilliant. He made a 1,600 on the SAT, which at the time was the maximum score you could make. Colleges came looking for him to offer him money. Wasn't quite that way with me. By the way, all that library studying, when I was going to college, my mother wanted me to go to the University of Michigan, which is where she graduated from. And she was smart. She knew I was interested in military things, so she took me to the ROTC instructor. I was 17 at that time. She had me talk to the ROTC guy who had some spare time. I shared with him more military knowledge of World War II and even current military stuff at that time. The guy was utterly astonished. He could not believe that a 17-year-old would know as much as I did. And you know what? He made the arrangements to get me into college. It was after admission time, but he talked to a couple of his buddies, and they got me into the University of Michigan. So all that time studying all these books got me into college after the cutoff date for application. Now, Michigan was a massive shift for me. I was immature. I knew I had a lot to learn. And it was hard for me. But where did I spend my time? I spent my time in the library, studying as much as I possibly could. I also bought books on my own because you can't always find everything in a library, although interlibrary loan is something that I do use. But being in libraries absolutely was the foundation of my success in college. I have a master's degree in Near Eastern languages and literatures. My MA thesis was a translation of a history of Afghanistan written in Dari, which is very close to Farsi. I was required to turn in 100 pages. I ended up turning in 332 pages, and I still didn't finish the work, but 332 was what I could do. I did this as a single parent in the U.S. Army with custody of my child. I have no idea how I did it because, of course, I was still in the Army. But I managed to get it all done, and I got my master's degree. Now, where did I go for help? Why, I went to the Post Library. I went to the library in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and I found a book on Arabic calligraphy. I thought, well, now that's interesting. So I took it back to my unit, photocopied it, and I gave it to the other unit that we worked with, and we were focused on the Middle East. And I just gave it to the other unit, and I said, hey, you guys need this. The captain over there came over and he said, did you know that we got graded down on a training mission because of crummy calligraphy? And I said, no, sir, I did not. He looked at me in utter astonishment because this book that I had photocopied at battalion solved his problem, and I didn't even know he had the problem. And that got me a lot of good treatment in my military unit. Let me tell you, these are just a few stories of how useful libraries are. Had I not had access to libraries, I would have been a radically different person. Libraries are critical, in my opinion, to helping people get focused on their mission and purpose in life. I have long encouraged people to go to libraries. Part of it is what was done for me. People have helped me a lot, and you want to pass on that good help. Libraries power massive improvement. The best piece of advice I've ever received is to keep on going. Don't give up. If it didn't work the first time, try another way. Just persist. If you have to give up, make sure you don't give up for more than, an hour, but just go back to it. Keep at it again. Respect is the center of the circle of community, and I was told this by Native American elders. Here's the sacred order: respect, rapport, trust, communication, cooperation. Cooperation is how humans survive. Without cooperation, humans fight and they die. And it all begins with respect. Respect is the single most important quality you can have in dealing with other people. Respect is staggeringly important. I go out of my way to show respect for people. At the center of every healthy community is Respect for each other. At the center of every problem community is massive disrespect. And you're going to tell me, oh, these people did this, these people. Okay, that's fine. You don't control them. You control yourself. You can control yourself into showing respect. One way to respect people is to feed their interests. Mr. Brown, when I gave you one of those books way back when, and I saw what you did with it, I got a massive dopamine rush. Why? Because my $1 investment in that book paid itself off repeatedly. And as I recall, you even put this into a film that you made. You used a book that I gave you 20 years ago as a prop in a movie where you were really telling a story about yourself. Well, why not? Isn't that what we're here to do? We're not here to be confined to our physical bodies. No, the human organism is around maybe 100, 110 people, and the whole point of things is to help other people. The library does that in a big way because it feeds interest. It inspires. It gives people visions of what's possible, what they can do in their lives. The library is, to my mind, one of the most important places you could go. You want to change the world? Feed people's interests. And that's what a library does. It feeds interest.
Thank you for listening to 250 Stories, a production of HPL Studios at Hartford Public Library. This episode was written and produced by Christopher T. Brown, sound by Sam Sigmund, edited by Faith Lucas, and with photography and graphic design support from Hartford Public Library's communications team and the Hartford History Center. For more information on this project, visit www.hplstudios.hplct.org. New episodes release every Tuesday, so subscribe to stay tuned.